There are different types of viscosity modifier, the same way I talk about different type of potatoes and different type of meats and clams, right? You can have a viscosity modifier that'll thicken really well, long chain, but in a sense, when it's cold, they'll curl up like your brand new cat, right? It'll curl up in your lap and like a little fur ball,
Yes.
right? And just allow the base oil to get to the upper heads as fast as possible when you're doing those cold starts. But when you get it round up, that cat's furred up like this, hairs on the thing. And it's the same way with the molecules. It will expand out and help to thicken the oil.
I just think of that because I think, old school drag racing. It's like you want the thickest oil you can to put in there. And that does not mean, thick doesn't always mean the best, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hot Rod Pod, where it all began. I'm John McGann from Hot Rod Magazine, and I'm here with special guest host, Alex Taylor. Thank you, Alex, for being here. And this episode is brought to you by Pennzoil. And so here we are with Sean Nguyen from Pennzoil. And Sean, we're in this amazing facility. I've never been to an oil manufacturer before, so this is my first time at a place like this, and it's really impressive. So first of all, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do here, and then basically a little bit about the facility.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Sean Nguyen. I'm I guess you call a lubricant specialist at Shell, 28 years with Shell. And welcome to this site, John and Alex, to one of our largest research facility here in the U.S. We're based here in Houston, Texas, with a campus of 200 acres, about 1,300 scientists and engineers. 65% of them are masters or PhD level. So we're the nerd center, I would say, the nerd center of Shell. And we do practically all research that Shell touches on. But my area and the area we're spending time together today is the lubricants and fuel side of the business. And so hopefully you got to enjoy a little bit of that yesterday.
Yeah, I know. We got to go on a tour, and I know, Alex, you've done a tour here before. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. And coming into this, you're like, well, how do we talk for an hour about oil and lubricants? But there's so much more. We were talking on this tour yesterday, all these things that motor oil has to do for an engine, and the stuff you don't even think about. Like you pour it in, you don't think about it. Maybe you change it at 3,000 miles or 5,000 miles, but there's a lot more science that goes into that. And I guess that's what I wanted to talk to you basically about is like, Texas is known for oil and the boom in the United States of that industry and how things have changed since then and how much science is involved now. Science and chemistry, you were showing us molecules and diagrams. And so can you kind of just start at the beginning, oil coming out of the ground?
Wow. We need more than an hour. We're gonna let Sean talk, so we're gonna go forever. But you understand crude as the black material that comes out of the ground, and you see derricks and you see refineries all around the country. And that's the old process of how we're able, and it's a really good process of refining how you're able to extract the crude out of the ground, fractionate it, hydrotreat it, collect different molecules, everything from a basic methane all the way to 1 million molecules to make something of the far end as asphalt. But in between, you get the golden nugget, which we call base oils, right? You get your gasolines, your diesels, but the golden nugget that we spend time in research is the base oil. And base oil come in different qualities. The industry, mainly the consumer visualize it as either our conventional oil or synthetic oil. And I know, Alex, you put synthetic in your race car in that space. And the old tradition was conventional because we didn't understand synthetic. Why synthetic? And I think over the years, better refining, better hydrotreating, processing has made the refining process better to eliminate a lot of the old contaminants that was there. The stigma of paraffin in oil was not great. The stigma of poor quality oxidations, how oil break down really bad and how it could not handle the cold or the extreme heat as well. And over the years, we've perfected the refining process to make oil better. So you are able to make good quality conventional oils But the shift now is making good quality synthetic oil. And Shell stands out over the years is that we have played in that space. Pennzoil has played in that space, but over the last 40 years, we focused mainly on making it. Now the nugget is making oil from a single methane molecule. Some of your consumers and some of your fans have heard of GTL, making gas into liquid. We're not compressing gas. We're not liquefying gas. We're actually building molecules, one molecule at a time. And so I'm going to use an example. Like I say, you asked me for 30 minutes. I'm going to give you 2 hours.
Good. This episode of the Hot Rod Podcast is brought to you by Pennzoil. And now a quick word from Pennzoil, starring the editor-in-chief of Hot Rod Magazine, John McGann.
Ta-da!
The Hot Rod Pod is presented by Pennzoil, where they say, long may we drive, because preserving the thrill and joy of driving matters. And as someone who spends their life around cars, working on them, photographing them, writing about them, driving them, I'm glad to have them as a sponsor. For people who are truly connected to their vehicles, engine protection isn't just maintenance, it's how you keep doing what you love year after year. Pennzoil, engine protection for the lifetime of your vehicle.
So if we start with a single molecule of natural gas now, which is a methane molecule, right? And we're able to use chemistry. For the past 40 years, our catalyst team is actually down the hallway. We have our aviation team down the other way. We have our battery lab down another building, our hydrogen group, our carbon capture group. So this place encapsulate a lot of the different activities that help us to deliver this technology together. And over the years, we're able to build a molecule one at a time. By doing that, we're able to eliminate a lot of the, I call dirty materials. It's not really dirty, but in the molecule space, it's dirty material like your sulfurs, your nitrogen molecules, and your double bond molecules that actually is not beneficial for base oil. Great for gasoline, great for other applications, but multiple bonds in a molecule is really bad for the performance of a base oil. I'll shift to a different conversation because I have a multiple track mind. I'm crazy that way. But by building that molecule, we're able to consistently make a straight chain molecule with sidearms to make a very pure, refined product, which is called gas to liquid technology oil. And that oil is the base of what we make in a lot of our premium products, which is our Pennzoil Platinum, Ultra Platinums, and a lot of other specialized base stock that is used in other areas of lubricants in the entire industry for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that said, I believe one point you referenced that synthetic is kind of like a marketing term for lack of, maybe that's a poor way to say it, but it's people have a misconstrued when they hear synthetic because they don't really understand what that means. Is that what you're saying with this, or what does that actually?
It is true. The word synthetic and conventional come from the old terminology of conventional refining process. You heat it, you cook it, you fractionate it, and then you collect condense those molecules. And when you go through the process of further hydrocracking, hydrotreating, basically breaking the bonds, and you're synthesizing now. So that's why they call it synthetic. So for the consumer, you either hear conventional or synthetic. But in the industry, we classified it in either group 1, which is a really poor quality, large molecule base oil. Most of our conventionals are what we call group 2, really good quality products. But when you synthesize, when you break molecule, you add hydrogens to it, you go through the synthesis process, making a really high quality, 90% of the bonds are removed, 90% of the impurities are removed. And you get a product, in most instances, better performance in cold temperature, better performance in high temperature, a little bit of a huge improvement in volatility. That, in a sense, gives you a superior base stock, right? And I'm going to talk about our Boston friends who are snowed in today, right? So I'm going to focus on clam chowder today. And that's basically the base stock. right? So if you're thinking about making soup, you need a good quality base stock. The same way you want to make a good quality soup, and the same way with oil. And you have to start with, is it a beef bone or is it a chicken bone versus bouillons and water as your beginning base stocks. And so having a good base stock is synthetic or GTL, which is much, much more superior. You're getting basically, you're thinking about making your soup stock from organic materials, from good water and all that, so that you have all the basic flavors there. The same way when it comes to those soup base giving you those flavor, GTL gives you superior benefits already before you even start putting additives into it. Before you start putting your clams and your potato and your celery into it, it already has the flavor of superior cold temperature flow. We did a negative 35 degrees flow yesterday, and you saw what happened with the conventional. It came out like a hockey puck off of that slide. Superior high temperature performance, meaning in extreme heat where Alex is pushing her car to the limits in the middle of summer, right? It can handle that extreme heat to not break down in the extended drain that our regular consumers on a Honda Accord would use, right? It gives you better performance in mixing with the additives. It has also really good aeration properties because in the working of an engine, you have incorporate bubbles into it, right? You incorporate air and gases into it, and that actually degrade the molecule. So by removing that air quickly, you're not cavitating some of the upper heads and the high load areas in performance engines or everyday drivers along the way. So those are some of the key benefits along the way. There are benefits that doesn't even apply to us or a gasoline engine. It's dielectric in properties. And so it has other application use that we use in the industrial applications, some of the novel applications, and especially if we really go into a rabbit hole, we can talk about e-fluids. We can talk about electric motors, how some of the EV applications is happening out there in the industry. So our GTL is that really sweet base stock that allows us to make any soup that we like, in a sense, from your drag car to our everyday car to the Indy cars and the NASCARs that's racing, I guess, this next couple of weeks, right?
So basically you say you start with a molecule of methane, and then you can just build it to suit whatever the application is, whether it's a transmission fluid or like a lubrication for a gearbox differential. And that's just adding different molecules onto that initial.
Right. I'm going to jump out of my chair for a second. That's the molecules. So
it feels very much like chemistry class in high school.
We go back to chemistry 101 because, you know, I'm a nerd chemist, right? So a typical really good synthetic product will have about up to 10% of what we would call double bonds, right? It might have sulfur in it, it might have nitrogen molecules in it, and it may even have a ring structure like this. So because it has these multiple bonds, these become bad actors when you put it under heat and stress, right? Heat will cause molecules to basically vibrate and breaks apart. And when it breaks apart, then of course it looks for contaminants. We automatically have fuel dilutions in our application. Hydrocarbons, we have water that may incorporate because of it sitting overnight, especially in Houston with 80% humidity in the summer, right? And we have granny cycles where the engine is not able to heat up and evaporate that fuel and water. So this then grab either nitrogen in the air, water in the fuel and the oil, and form acids. Acids is not good for engine. Acids is not good for metal. And if we're able to eliminate these double bonds or bad actors, we're able to extend the life of the oil much better. And that gives you a product that is very pure in quality and allows you to then focus specifically. Do I need to focus on your wear? Do I need it to focus on better cleaning detergents to make sure that the engines stay clean? Do I need it to use for better application on durability or protection on your C10? Right. In those classic vehicles when I need more, maybe more anti-wear or more zinc, a sacrificial layer. So that allows us to focus specifically on the additive technology to make that soup really balance, right? Another thing is, going back to our soup analogy again, right, is that, right, Now let's talk about the ingredients, right? Because if we go back to the clam chowder, we can get canned clam or we get fresh clam out of the Boston, right?
Yep.
Out of the Atlantic. Or and then that's the difference in flavor of the clam, canned clam. Or even is it New England potatoes or is it Idaho potatoes? That's when we sit there and we play around with the ingredients, right?
Sure.
And for us down here in the South, we like a little bit more heat in our soup. But that might not be applicable. So in a sense, we can design it. Is it heat for her car versus not heat for others in the other parts of the world or an OEM specification? And that's how we tailor that. So it makes it match perfectly for those applications that we use.
So just to go back, you have your base stock, which that's your crude oil, and then your modifiers are your viscosity modifier and your additive packages, correct? That you guys make this mix out of.
Correct.
So not all base oil is created equal, right? And from all the facilities around the world, they have to send their base oil back here to be quantified.
Right. That is one of the unique characteristics of this site is that we have 5 different research facilities scattered around the world. This one covers the Western Hemisphere. So we're the only footprint on the Western Hemisphere. We have locations in Hamburg, Shanghai, Atsuki, Japan, and Bangalore. We have a little bit of footprint in Amsterdam. We do a lot of chemicals work, but we have a couple of people in Amsterdam. And so every one of us work on different areas of the business and looking at how do we deliver that technology. Now, refresh me with your question again, because
Yes.
I'm losing my track a little bit.
No, it didn't.
Getting old.
Because not all, because base oils are coming from not just one location.
Right.
So they have to come back here to this facility to be quantified before they can go into production.
True,
Right.
true.
Okay.
Because this facility is a center of excellence for base oil qualification. We recognize that we make a formula. Let's say we make a Pennzoil Platinum product here. It's not called Pennzoil Platinum in the rest of the world. It's called Helix in the rest of the world. But the formulation there, the additive, the main ingredients is the same. The base oils, what we call base oil flexibility, may change a little bit because I don't want to ship a base oil from Texas all the way to Singapore. I can get a base oil from Singapore or from Malaysia or from different parts of the world, from Venezuela. And that allows us to, in a sense, to evaluate and qualify that any base oil, any formulation, any product that's in any bottle we make has to certify the strict requirements that we make to qualify as either a Group 2 or a synthetic product when it gets into the bottle. So the consumer can be assured that if they buy it here or in Mexico or in Brazil, they're getting the same performance based on that performance package that we delivered.
I see.
Yes.
I know you can do custom blends too. And I remember when this isn't the first time we met, obviously, but this is about a year ago. You're saying if I came out to visit, you could kind of help me design a custom blend. I think that's cool. Like for Alex and her race car, what does the criteria say for Alex's 55 Chevy? What are the things you would be asking her to formulate a motor oil for her drag and drive car, which I think would be a lot more interesting than my C10 that just drive to work every day.
Well, it's a long drawn out process. You know, when we run with our racing team is, first of all, we got to see what's the status quo. What are you running? And of course, we run oil analysis to see, okay, what are your concerns? Are you concerned about wear metals, right? Do we have a lot of iron currently in it? And if I see iron, then I got to find a way to fortify that so I'll protect it from iron wear, right? If I see breakdown, the oil thinning out, then I need to work on maybe a better oil thickener or viscosity modifier, right? Because Alice, you're running 1060 on it. It's a special blend, extremely high, extremely low temperature, high temperature range. Beautiful product that we make for you guys. And that's also used in some of our Indy applications or Ferrari applications too, right? And so looking at the uniqueness of what a Ferrari engine right behind you, John, versus Alex's engine, what are the performance requirements? And how do I basically allow an oil to allow her engine to get the optimal horsepower without retarding performance? My job as an oil, if I design and make an oil, is to get there, lubricate, protect it, but get out of the way, let the hardware do the rest of the work. and let the driver punch that gas pedal. That's the whole philosophy. So when we design it, when we design the Pennzoil Platinum for our everyday driver up to the Ultra Platinum for our high performance cars like the SRTs and the new Corvettes and so forth, those applications require different nuances. And of course, the OEM comes in with specification. I need to have this. I need to have that. Alex comes in and tell me I needed to have this kind of performance, right?
Right.
And so we work with them to formulate that formula. And it's a fun activity. I think, Alex, you were here the last time. We made a bottle for you. You used a novel mixing technology that we're still experimenting on to make her oil. So she could, and we shipped it to her. She could get it on the plane, you know.
It was so cool, though. It was cool because it was like we got to see, and it goes back to your base comparison earlier, but you see your base stock, and then we got to add the viscosity modifier and, you know, the actual additive package. And that's something that I didn't realize how you guys do that on such a large scale, because it's not like you're just pumping this out and bottling it. There's so much science behind it. And I think that that's something like we were talking about earlier that kind of gets missed, where you have all these claims, you know, like Ultra Platinum now has a lifetime warranty, correct? And you have all these claims, but there's actual tests to back those claims. Could you tell us about a couple of those?
Absolutely. And this, I have to recognize our field trial team. You know, you talk about every oil looks brown, and consumer walk into a part stores and look at every bottle in the different colors, but you open the cap, they're all honey brown. But like I say, oil is not oil. One man's clam chowder is not another man's clam chowder, right? It's called clam chowder. But you have your preferences. That's why you go to your favorite soup shop along the way. The additives that comes in and the way that we make, I think, is tailored to allow us that chemistries to balance. And that's the crucial part is balancing the formulation so that the flavor or the performance of the oil delivers what we need. Do I need to protect it from where? Do I need it for extended drain or extreme heat, extreme cold application? And those are the challenges that comes to play for us in the designing or formulating an oil, right? And back to the field trial is that we have spent 6 years, 7 years ahead of time looking at how do we prove to the industry? Because like I say, the bottle of oil, you say that. And we can put a claim on any bottle, we do this, we do that. What Shell and Pennzoil has done is that we spent years in the taxi fleet in Las Vegas, New York, police fleets around the country to demonstrate that. And we saw some of the engines that we tore apart, right? If we're showing a 500,000-mile warranty, we had to prove that to our legal department to make sure that we're able to stand behind those claims. And a typical taxi would get about maybe 120,000 miles a year. So it'll take us 5-6 years to generate 750,000 miles or 500,000 miles. And we need that kind of data so that we can substantiate and stand behind the claims that we put on behind our product. So when we say 500,000 miles for platinum, you can be assured that we can protect it. We saw an engine that we tore out 250,000 miles. It looked like it could run another 250,000 miles, right? On the platinum and ultra platinum. We even had an engine that was just running on conventional for 250,000 miles, and it had no problems. Actually, the car fell apart before the engine did, right? We're welding that car back, the taxi back together. And so that's the challenge that we have, is the foresight and the effort to test these things and to put it on the road before we put it on the bottle.
I think it's worth stressing too why you picked Las Vegas and why you picked taxis. I mean, you kind of were explaining that yesterday, but if you could explain why that range of heat temperatures, the constant cycling, and why that's difficult for a motor oil to deal with.
The taxis, as well as racing applications. Racing applications push the extreme limits on what the consumer see that their vehicles will go through. And taxis are a really classic example, but they run our everyday cars, right? They're the Nissans, the Chargers, the Fords, and all that around the country. But Las Vegas and New York are the two of the extremes. Las Vegas is the extreme heat, dry, Summers, sandy conditions, they run their taxi 24 hours a day. They choose whatever fuel they want. So they'll buy the lowest grade, the cheapest grade fuel just because of cost, right? And the oil has to be able to handle that. And when we run them, we push it beyond the drain limit also, just to be assured the consumer that, okay, I may want to push it a little bit because I'm tight on budget this month and so forth. But we push the limit to show that. New York is the other extreme, right? Right now it's classic. Extreme cold, they're driving through blizzard, right? So they could be in extreme cold one day or extreme heat of New York summer traffic along the way. And those are where the engines are beat up. It's not owned by the driver. If you own your car, you baby it a little bit. But the customers tell you, I got to get to the airport quick, and they just do whatever they need to get there. And those extreme conditions, I think, allows us to really push our oil to the max, right? And to demonstrate what it can do and how it performs. And the consumer then can feel really sure that if I'm not driving a taxi, unless you're driving an Uber, that's a different conversation, then you're allowing the confidence that your car will perform at its best, putting the right oil in it, right?
So speaking of putting the right oil in it, if you have ultra platinum, which is your guys, golden child here, so to say, that's not always the choice. You guys have other oils in your line, like high mileage, platinum, and then ultra platinum. What are those differences? Like different engine combinations with different oils, or what is the differences in all?
Well, we recognize that people have preference, right? Some are steak, some are burger people, right? You still like your meat, or right now is a different season. And so having our ultra platinum give us our top in class product that gives us those who are interested in high performance. You have a performance car, or you want to cherry your car. You want to protect it. You want it to go for 500,000 miles. You want to make it last as long as your C10, right? But then we also have specially tailored products like our high mileage, right? That allows us, the consumers, not everybody can afford to buy a new car. So you don't know how the car was serviced. You don't know how the car was maintained, who took care of it. So it may have a little bit of wear and tear in that engine. So having a high mileage in there to slow down whatever wear that may be there, and also help to clean up some of the buildup that might have accumulated in it. So we may add improve detergency package to help it stay clean, or at least maintain the life of that engine as is. Maintain it as is. I can't really fix the scar on that engine, but I can help to extend the life of that engine. I may add additional seal improvers into the formulation on the high mileage to help close up some of the gaps and close up some of the leakages that may be happening inside that engine because of seal hardening and seal softening over the years. So those are the challenges that we do. And then we have the semi-synthetic high mileage and a full synthetic high mileage. We have those palettes of flavors that allow the consumer to kind of pick and choose what works best for them. But then they can be sure that whatever they use with Pennzoil products, it will protect them and it will give them the performance that's expected from me and from Pennzoil.
What is the nightmare scenario, the nightmare application? You mentioned, I don't remember the term. Did you pick it up? The granny factor?
The granny cycle.
The granny cycle. And that's, I think I know what you're talking about, but would you explain that for?
Well, we talk about, in your owner's manual, you always hear severe cycle. And severe cycle, there's many different, I think her driving is severe, right? 0 to 200 in 10 seconds, whatever it may be. That's severe. But severe cycle could be when you drive your car short distances, right? Grandma would probably just go to the grocery stores once a week to buy groceries 4 miles from the house. The car is not able to heat up and burn off the buildup of fuel or water contamination that may have built. And I mentioned the humidity. And so when the car is not able to heat up, it accumulates more of that over the year, right? So those short distances, the short intervals is one of the severe conditions. Dusty conditions, stop and go traffic. Houston traffic is horrible. LA traffic is tremendously horrible. Right? And so those are the severe conditions that you need to be aware of to check to make sure that the oil is performing. And so you have to maybe shorten your drain interval a little bit, Or I would recommend for those who are driving those short distances, or you're commuting only once to work and home, and it's only 8 miles. Let's say it's only 10, 15 minutes. Weekend, take it for a spin. Take it for a weekend drive. Burn off the water, burn off the fuel, and it will actually help to extend the life of that oil if you do that. And so you reduce the fuel dilution, you reduce the water dilution in the car. Those things break down that molecule, like I give the example of the molecule a while ago.
We talked about sludge yesterday, how sludge forms, and that's generally because of water condensation inside the engine that's basically sits overnight or in a humid condition that never really gets up to temperature to essentially boil that water out of the engine, right? I remember I went to a junkyard in Southern California a few years ago, and the intake manifold was off this small block Chevy, and it was a wall of sludge that had like push rod holes through it, but it was almost up to where the bottom of the intake manifold would have been. And obviously, I mean, we talked about that yesterday. That's one of those people who just tops the engine off, right? You never change it out, so you never get an opportunity to remove the contamination that the oil's trying to pull out of the engine when you do normal oil change intervals, right? You mentioned sludge formation, and then you have some chemistry that can help mitigate that. So what is that?
Well, I'm gonna age myself a little bit, right? Yeah. You remember, or you and I, Alice is still young. You remember when we had to drop the pan, change the oil, scrape the sludge off the bottom of the pan, and then put a new seal on it, right? Then you got to tighten the bolts. That's when they didn't have detergency package. That's when oil formulation was straight weight. You didn't have detergents. You had the 10 weight in the winter and then 30, 40 weight in the summer, right? And then detergency comes along the way. Friction modifier comes along the way, giving us multi-weight viscosity oil. And sludge formation is due to water. It's also due to the hydrocarbon, which is a fuel that comes across the rings. So when you have a lot of fuel dilution, hydrocarbon interact with the water, actually forming what we call the black slime sludge component. And so there are a lot of carbons in that product, and that builds up over time. And when you're unable to drain the oil, basically you're just accumulating that fuel mixture. And the engine that we saw yesterday, where it built up because they never drained it, they just keep topping it off, and it had about that thick of sludge on everything. That is due to that fact. The nice thing about detergency and dispersants is that detergents will clean the surface, kind of like our dishes, right? Dispersants will actually grab the carbon molecule, the hydrocarbon molecule, and encapsulate it. And then it will keep it in suspension so they can't bind, they can't form sludge. And when we drain the oil pan, all of it comes out. And that allows us to replenish, allow the new detergent, kind of like adding new dish detergent into our sponge. And that will give us more, in a sense, more suds. I don't want to talk about suds because that's bubbles. That's a wrong connotation. But basically, we're helping to keep that engine clean. And if we were able to keep that engine clean, then you're able to maintain that feel of horsepower feel when you press that gas pedal, right? Yeah, and it's not a little bit of retardation.
So talking a lot about how clean, how it keeps your engine clean, something that I do want to talk about, been around since 1913. So over 100 years. I mean this in a respectful way, but it's not your grandpa's oil that, from some connotation that you'll hear because, you guys have such a long history. People have this connotation of like when Pennzoil was, early on, there's sludge, there's buildup, there's parabens, and they think that continued into today's formulation. But that's very far from the truth. So those misconceptions are just old thinking, correct?
Yeah, and I think that connotation went out with the word paraffin, right? Back to my molecule again. Every molecule that's a chain is called paraffin. So every oil that's made is basically a paraffin. Now, to make it paraffinic, or in a sense for the consumer, waxy, you just make a straight chain instead of little sidearms. So if you make a straight chain, it'll behave like butter. It'll line up, it'll plate up, and it'll crystallize, forming what the consumer would be called paraffin or wax. The refining process over the years have eliminated that. And Pennzoil in the past have had bad connotations with wax buildup because the old crude that we have used was a paraffinic type, very waxy crude. But refining process now has eliminated that, has removed a lot of that waxiness, has broke those bonds and allowed you to make a very clean base oil.
So looking at the past, you guys have come from there to now, but looking at the future, like you guys you're not just living in the moment, right? You're evolving as engine technologies evolving.
Absolutely. So you and I have been to trade shows plenty of times. And a lot of our old mechanics would come in, that Pennzoil product is sludgy and so forth. I say, well, that's the 80s chemist. This is your modern day chemist. I'm not that guy anymore. Jokingly, they're buried and they're in heaven, bless their soul, for the work that they've done. We have modified that. And I think we constantly strive to be better.
Yeah.
Being one of the leading oil producers in the global industry, I like that big target. You like being first place. You like to see your competitor in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to stay. And so we're constantly striving to find new additive technologies, right? I'm working right now to see how our product is performing against, we call it benchmarking, right? Versus a competitor right now, and see how can we be better. Right now, we're already better, but constantly striving. I have a couple patents, and one of the patents is how do we drop friction? Because when we know that when we're at low RPM, the engine is still a little rough. We're at what the industry call boundary friction, when you still do not have a complete oil film along the way. And so how do we mitigate that friction in the beginning at that low RPM? Because when we get to high RPMs, that's easy. We squeeze in enough oil pressure, we separate the metals and the bearings and so forth apart. So those are the easy part. How do we eliminate that friction curve in the entire power drive or in the power curve so that we can give that engine complete performance, especially in the low end, right? Yeah. And that's what I want to focus on.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have to face a really tough conditions, basically mandated by new car manufacturers, running really thin rings, fuel economy standards that are pretty difficult to meet.
Yes.
And you mentioned the friction inside the engine too. Like, what are motor oils selling now? Is like 0W. That's like almost like transmission fluid you're pouring into a new car engine, right?
Yeah. The lowest weight in the U.S. right now is a 0W8, right?
I didn't know that. That sounds insane to me.
I saw that come through on a form the other day, and I'm like, is that a typo? Like, that looks
0W8. Yeah. So why? I mean, it's kind of obvious, but still, why such a low viscosity weight recommended from the manufacturer? And then, what do you guys have to do to make that work?
Well, I'm shifting back to Alice again. She's talking about dropping the weight on her car, right, to give her that performance. And the drive for all the manufacturers for the past 20 years is fuel economy, right? Well, actually, the last 40 years is fuel economy.
Yeah.
And the quickest way to fuel economy is not have a passenger, right, or heavy passenger, or lighten the car. Okay. I have a classic example. In college, I had a Celica.
Yeah.
Rear drive,
right,
engine in the front.
Yeah.
And it was a freeze, and I had to go up a hill. I had a heavy passenger. I was driving home from work. I had no problem dropping the passenger off. But when I dropped the passenger off, I couldn't get up that hill because the wheels were slipping. I didn't have weight.
No traction.
I wasn't smart enough to throw sandbags in the rear wheel. Right. So lighting the car is huge in fuel economy. Lighting the engine, if we can drop the 300 pounds off, even 80 pounds here, that's why you see thinner sheet metal. We don't have your C10 or your, that's a big old block, nothing can crush it, right? You hit a new car right now, I mean, it's just aluminum foil. So that's the one achievement. Two is moving away from the iron blocks, right? It's all aluminum blocks. Maybe alloy liners and so forth. Turbos to improve performance, boost up the performance, smaller piston size, right? We're not 6 liters anymore. We're 1.5, 1.2 liter engines and so forth with a turbo. And you get the same horsepower, and you can play around it with get some torque and performance along the way. And of course, direct injection and all the stuff that comes in how engines have changed and not really changed, right? Performance has always been there. It's just how manufacturers have tried to achieve that. And when they do that, it creates more challenges for us as an oil manufacturer because, okay, We're not worried about much in iron as much anymore. The ring tensions are a little bit softer now. And of course, clearances are like, hair thin. Your clearances on yours is a mile wide. It's like Death Valley versus when you compare it to my little 1.3 liter out there. Big differences in clearances. And so thin oil will give you that efficiencies. When you drop from 10W40 to 0.20, 0.16, 0.12s now, and 0.8s, you're able to basically, like I said, lubricate, but get out of the way, let the horsepower do its job, and still protect. The consumer, of course, is always afraid that's just floating on the water. How do we do that? And that's the challenge that we're incorporating. How do we mitigate that and still protect that? The OEMs require that. We got to, and that's why we do field trials. That's why, because we actually run some of the OEMs' cars to qualify for their specs. Our partnerships with some of the major OEMs like Stellantis and such gives us insight and relationships that allow us to test and show to them and the industry we can achieve that together. In our class, I talked about how we designed a car from ground up, a 3-cylinder in 2015, 2016, 3-seater, 3-cylinder engine, ICE engine that's able to achieve 108 miles per gallon. We're able to do that in 2015. The OEMs, and I think the industry can shift that way, is how do we get there and how do we do that together? And that's a challenge for the oil manufacturers as well as the engine manufacturers along the way.
You mentioned that car yesterday. What specifically, it's basically like reducing all the friction, as much of the friction as possible inside the engine, that allows that to get that high of a gas mileage, right? That's incredible.
I think it's everything, right? Drag, you got to look at wind drag and everything else. All those things, aerodynamics, lighten the weight, optimizing the transmission so it's shifted at the optimal so you don't you're not in high RPMs or you're burning gas. And so those are the challenges that the consumer will have to decide. Do you want horsepower or do you want to get from point A to point B? And that's where we make those choices. Do we do the Honda Civics or do we do the Dodge Chargers, right? And so along the way.
Shifting gears a little bit, but still on the
automatic or manual?
On the conversation of viscosity, I'm probably going to say this backwards, but something that you mentioned before was that you can't make oil thinner or thicker, like once it's in the engine. Because the viscosity modifier that's added to it, I can't remember. Does that make it thinner once the engine's running? Because you need it to flow to the heads when you start the engine, so you want this weight. But then the viscosity modifier, once the engine heats up, it changes to the operating viscosity that you need.
Right. That's a very convoluted, very difficult explanation to explain to the regular consumer. So let me try to simplify it as much as possible. Viscosity modifier, back to our soup analogy again, it's kind of like our cornstarch thickening our soup. So in formulating oil, you have to start with the lowest viscosity. So let's say I'm making a 5-weight or 0-weight. So I have to blend with a 0-weight oil, okay? The additives will kind of thicken it up a little bit, viscosity modifier. So then you have to choose your thickener. The introduction of viscosity modifiers allow us to make a multi-weight, right? Our whole goal is to allow the engine to see basically the same viscosity throughout the temperature range, from sub-zero to 200 degrees, whatever, 260, whatever settings that we have in our engine. And to allow that engine to see that. And to do that, you add the viscosity modifier. And it basically will expand and contract. So there are different types of viscosity modifier, the same way I talk about different type of potatoes and different type of meats and clams, right? You can have a viscosity modifier that will thicken really well. Long chain. But in a sense, when it's cold, they'll curl up like your brand new cat, right? They'll curl up in your lap and like a little fur ball, right? And just allow the base oil to get to the upper heads as fast as possible when you're doing those cold starts. But when you get it riled up, that cat's furred up like this, hairs on that thing. And it's the same way with the molecules. It will expand out and help to thicken the oil. We know that in temperature, anything, you heat it up, it will soften, right? Any liquid, but you counter that softness by adding a thickener. That thickener expands, and so it will help to re-thicken that engine. Hopefully, see a very small viscosity change. That way, it performs the way it's designed. That way, at 500 RPM to 5,000 RPM, or in your case, a lot more RPM, right? And that's the challenge that we are incorporate. And the challenge of using different viscosity modifier will give you either durability, thickness, power, and they vary. Same way when we talk about ingredients in the soup, the quality of the ingredients in formulating base oil, in formulating motor oil, is the same challenge.
I just think of that because I think, old school, I hate using that term, but old school like drag racing, it's like you want the thickest oil you can to put in there. And that does not mean, thick doesn't always mean the best, right? Like different applications, but thanks, okay.
Sean, you mentioned everyone basically who works here has either a master's or a PhD. Like, what's your education path? What made you want to get into this? Like, this is a very, very specialized field. So like, were you a little kid and you're like, I want to make motor oil when I grow up? Like, how did you get here? And then for someone else, like people watching this, like, I think it's kind of fascinating what you do. How can somebody get here? The next generation.
I think there are many pathways, right?
Okay.
For me, I kind of learned to love cars over the years, but I started my career, well, wanted to be a doctor, but I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't smart enough. That's
like a medical doctor?
Yeah, that's a lot of smart PhDs out there in the hallway out here, and I'm not one of them. But but I come into this space, you learn, and you're self-taught to do that. I started my career doing research in grease formulation, and then shifted over to crude evaluations and understanding the values of crude and how we fractionate crudes and see the different components and the value of that. And then shifted over to engine oil over the years. And those learnings, I think, you talk about how do we get in. I think it's got to have a love of science, right? And then to get in the car, you got to learn to love. It's like some of the movies, the smell of, for me, it's the smell. I love the smell of unburnt gas in the morning, right? The smell of sulfur, burnt rubber as you drag a car. And you got to have a little bit of that in your blood to have this passion that we do in formulating. My colleague who just joined our team is now working with our IndyCar, our racing team, right? And so that love of science brings you to this space, and the love of learning, right? Every day is learning. I have a new colleague who just joined us. She was in analytical chemistry. Now she's a chemist in doing this. We have engineers who are now chemists. So we learn that, and the same way you learn the tricks of the trade, I don't know. When did you start driving? Drive cars.
16.
16, so she was breaking police traffic lights everywhere along the way. How many tickets he got away? Yeah, you got to have that little passion to carry you along the way.
Yeah.
I never imagined that I'll end up in this kind of role, in this kind of career. But I think all those kind of, eventually, I'm always a roundabout way. I'm never a straight line to the point. Some of my work is I go visit colleges and I talk to kids and I recruit kids. And I look for kids who are inquisitive, who are learning, right? And who likes to be challenged. But then they're always asking questions. And I say, well, if I look into this room, the field is narrow, right? But the industry is going to be there for a long time. I think all of us have a passion for engines and ICE engines, right? It's just that roar of the engine and the feel that EV is the future. I think that is a part of the future, but ICE engine, I think, will still be our future for the longest time. For our generations, for our kids and kids.
We approve that.
Amen to
that. That's funny.
You end up doing a lot of trade shows then too, like sort of in your capacity. So I bet you get some crazy questions from people.
Yeah, I've been on our call hotline, which is our technical call centers, where I spent about 5 years in that one, where we get to hear some of the craziest stuff. And actually, I'm sharing this weekend with our team some of the myths and some of the crazy stories that we've heard. And we talk about guys approaching us talking about Pennzoils, paraffin, old mechanics, and so I had to dispel some of those myths. We had myth stories of going synthetic, you can't go back. You remember the old
Oh yeah,
story about
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah. And so those things are not an issue that we see nowadays with modern cars, modern seal technologies, and all those along the way. We hear stories of crazy frat kids drinking motor oil, right? As a frat, crazy drunk
Okay.
parties along the way. I'm not sure if it's going to be allowed
I didn't-
online.
I
Right?
missed out on that
Yeah.
actually.
You know, and Thanksgiving turkey, you know, running out, running out of peanut oil.
No.
Yes. So you hear crazy stories of what's happening out there. People, because they hear oil, right? They say, hey, you know, peanut oil, olive oil, motor oil, you know, they're all the same. They're brown.
Yep.
That's the issue that consumer.
That's
Don't
funny.
do this
No,
at
don't
home,
do that.
people. Okay, don't do this. I do not recommend it. I don't recommend you ever do that. Please.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's funny though. A lot of what you were showing us, especially the heat cycling test. You essentially cook oils here
Yeah.
to test how quickly they break down and what happens when
Yeah.
they break down, right?
Well, you know, the industry has standardized tests. The nice thing about the research facilities, we understand the standardized tests, but working closely with the OEMs, we're able to push and change our methodology of testing to give us deeper insight. I think modifying some of the tests, you know, you have tests that are sliding tests, rotating tests, friction tests, wear tests, oxidation tests, which is cooking. We have a simple test, which I call my frying pan test. So everybody, when I say frying pan, you understand. You flip the back of it and you see it.
Yeah.
All that varnish and all the crud that build up because of oil comes off. And so there's a simple test that we have, and you put it on a plate and you heat it just to see what left, and then wash it in oil and see how that oil is able to resist the heat and how it cleans up that plate. And those are the challenges and the tests that we modify. There's a standard method and there's some modified tests that give us insight. So we're able to incorporate grabbing used oil, because most of the test runs on fresh oil. It gives us some insight of performance. What happened after 5,000 miles? What happened at 10,000 miles? How is it still behaving? So when we're telling the customers it would go this long for you, we know that the performance, the additives in there will still taste like clam chowder 3 days later,
Right.
right? And not taste like clam powder.
So talked a lot about like quality and such, but something that I found fascinating was when we toured the amount of quality control and like how many times during the process of production a sample is sent back to make sure it meets those
Yes.
standards. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, at every one of our, well, here we're very strict and very, I guess not strict, but very meticulous in making sure the quality performance along the way. And at the blending plant, we have one of our huge, largest blending plant about an hour east of here that does a lot of our blending. And we talked about some of the new methods of blending along the way. And there is quality control processes. They have their lab, which do some of the basic checks. But then when they see something out of the nuance, they may send it here, and then we can have our scientists and engineers look at it and say, okay, what's going on? How do we modify this? And to correct it before it goes into the bottle. You know, it's not 100%, but I would say it's over 99.5, 99% perfect. You know, once in a while, something will get in the same way you see problem with manufacturing everywhere, right? It could be anything along the way. But we try to make sure we identify that and mitigate that before it goes to the general public. And the nice thing about our bottles is every one of our bottles have a production date on it. It will tell you the date it was made and has a production SKU number stamped on it. So if there's a problem with that, you can call our 800 number. We can know where exactly it was made, when it was made, and we can track that because we keep a sample of every batch, every batch, so that we can back check that if it comes back as something issue. And that allows us to also recognize if the product is, in a sense, pirated. We've had issues, right? Not just not in other parts of the world, but in the U.S. too, where the Pennzoil brand is very well known, well recognized. People have been known to pour other oils into our bottles and sell it as a premium product. The industry have what they call motor oils matter, so when you can report, where you feel that the product is not what you think it is. So the industry API will allow you to report that, and you can track that along the way. So there's things that the consumer can call and identify to help them to address some of the concerns that they may have. And then, of course, our 800 hotline, which is 800 Best Oil, is a number that they can call to talk to our specialists and talk to some people like myself to understand applications and issues and even concerns that they have about our performance, or even just talk oils and talk engines. And so we've got guys who'd love to be able to spend time and talk to you about that. So
That's cool. We're about out of time. Yeah,
Wow.
about out of time, Sean. But I wanted to thank you very much. Real quick, to sum everything up, what's the best thing you can do for your engine to make it last a long, long, long time?
Well, I think the cheapest, and all of us will agree, the cheapest way to maintain the life of your engine is changing your oil regularly.
And regularly, as in?
Whatever your manufacturer recommend. But for us,
Yeah.
old farts, we change it a lot sooner, right? We figure, we want to keep that C10 for the next 30 years.
right,
I
that's
want to
right.
keep my Fiat for the next 25 years because my kid will probably want it,
Yeah.
right? And your dragster will keep on running. And that's the cheapest way to do it. If you want to extend the life, because the cost of an engine repair is much, much more than a $30 or $50 oil change.
Cheap insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cheap
Absolutely.
insurance. I agree with you. I like to crawl under the hood and drain it myself, right?
Mhm.
Yes, but if I ever get lazy and bring it to the shop, I'll go to a store and grab the bottle off the shelf and say, use this. Put my Pennzoil in my car. And whichever brand you pick, do your investigation, do your research, right? We are here to promote Pennzoil, but at the same time, we say, do your research, figure out what's the best for you. Trust the people around you that give you the best advice.
Sure.
Right? Your parts stores, Hot Rod is one of the places where they share really straight facts to the consumer about the truth that's happening out there. And Alex tested it in her cars.
Personal
I don't
testing.
think she would talk with me or be my friend if my oil crap out and tear up her car.
That'd be a short
It'll be a
partnership.
short-
wouldn't it be?
Friends right now.
We're still
We're
friends
doing
on that.
good.
So we're good. Yeah,
Awesome.
change your oil, maintain it, change your fluids like clockwork, and enjoy the ride. Pick the car, enjoy the ride before we won't have that opportunity anymore. Seriously.
Hopefully well past my lifetime.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, Sean, thank you very much. You're the most entertaining
Oh, wow.
lubrication specialist I know. And it's been an honor to have us here. So thank you very much, Sean, for your time. Alex, thank you so much for sitting in.
Oh,
I
yeah.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you guys.
It was a great
Thanks,
time.
John. Hopefully we nerd you up a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be back for, we'll do a custom C10 formulation next time I come visit.
All
So
right.
The McGann blend.
that's, I like that.
Oh, the McCann blend.
I like
We
that
label
so
it
much.
McCann blend.
Thank you all for watching this episode of the Hot Rod Podcast, brought to you by Pennzoil. And stay tuned. We got several more in the pipeline.